In 2012, inside a Las Vegas casino, a man lost $26 million in a single night. Not invested, not gambled over months. Lost. One night. Witnesses say he barely reacted. No anger, no panic, no hesitation. How do you lose 26 million US dollars in one night and not panic? Because the money was never his to begin with. The man at the table was a Malaysian socialite named Joe Low, and the money he was burning through belonged to an entire country. Over the next few years, investigators would uncover a global fraud involving Wall Street bankers, shell companies, Hollywood celebrities, luxury yachts, and billions stolen from a government investment fund. The scandal became known as 1MDB, and even today, the man accused of designing it all remains free. Low Tech Joe was born in 1981 in Penang, Malaysia. His family was wealthy, but not extraordinarily wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy, not yacht in Monaco wealthy. But from a young age, Joe Low understood something important. In elite circles, perception matters almost as much as money itself. At 14 years old, he was sent to Harrow School in England, one of the most prestigious boarding schools in the world, the same institution attended by British prime ministers and aristocrats. He was surrounded by heirs to oil fortunes, royal families, and generational wealth. And while many students focused on academics, Joe focused on relationships. He organized gatherings, built connections, paid for dinners, remembered names. He learned how powerful people interacted with each other. More importantly, he learned how to make himself appear indispensable. Later, he attended the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Again, the same pattern continued. He threw extravagant parties, picked up expensive tabs, moved confidently through elite social circles despite no obvious source for the kind of wealth he projected. People around him began associating him with power, influence, and money. And that image became his greatest asset. Because long before Joe Low stole billions, he mastered the art of looking like someone who already had them. At this point, Joe Low wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't even a government official. So how did a young man with no formal authority end up controlling billions of dollars belonging to an entire nation? In 2009, Malaysia launched a sovereign wealth fund called One Malaysia Development Berhad, better known as 1MDB. Officially, the fund was designed to help modernize Malaysia's economy, infrastructure projects, foreign investments, economic development. The pitch sounded legitimate. And sovereign wealth funds themselves are not unusual. Countries like Norway and Saudi Arabia use them to invest national wealth into long-term assets. But 1MDB had one critical difference. It operated under enormous political influence. Malaysia's Prime Minister Najib Razak personally oversaw the fund. At the same time, he also served as finance minister. That meant one of the country's most powerful politicians effectively controlled both the government's finances and this new investment vehicle. And hovering around the operation was Joe Low. Officially, he held no major executive role. Unofficially, he was everywhere. He connected Middle Eastern investors to Malaysian officials. He attended meetings, introduced deals, built trust. To outsiders, he looked like a smooth international businessman helping Malaysia attract foreign investment. In reality, investigators later alleged that he was positioning himself near one of the largest pools of money in Southeast Asia. And once the system trusted him, the theft began. The fund was supposed to build Malaysia's future. Instead, it became the perfect vehicle for one of the largest financial frauds in modern history. The question was, if you wanted to steal $700 million, why wouldn't you just transfer it into your own bank account? Because that's the first place investigators would look. Just months after 1MDB was created, Joe Low introduced the fund to a company called PetroSaudi International. The proposal sounded sophisticated. 1MDB would invest $1 billion into a joint venture with PetroSaudi. In return, PetroSaudi would contribute valuable oil and gas assets. On paper, it looked like a strategic international energy partnership. But behind the scenes, something very different was happening. Before the transaction was completed, a shell company called Goodstar Limited had already been established in the Cayman Islands. Investigators later discovered that when 1MDB transferred its billion-dollar investment, $700 million was diverted almost immediately into Goodstar's bank account. The beneficial owner connected to Goodstar, Joe Low. Hundreds of millions disappeared before the joint venture had even properly begun. And somehow, major financial institutions processed the transfers. Banks approved them. Compliance departments failed to stop them. Warning signs were either ignored, missed, or deliberately overlooked. Over time, Investigators say more than $1 billion connected to the Petro-Saudi deal was siphoned away from 1MDB. The strategy was simple: create complexity, move money quickly, use offshore companies, and rely on the assumption that nobody would connect the dots fast enough. At least not before billions had already vanished. $700 million had vanished, and somehow nobody stopped it. But compared to what came next, this was just the warm-up. If the Petro-Saudi deal was the test run, the next phase was industrial scale. Between 2012 and 2013, Goldman Sachs helped 1MDB raise $6.5 billion through bond offerings. The fees Goldman earned from these deals were enormous, roughly $600 million, far above normal industry standards. That alone should have raised questions, but the deeper problem came afterward. According to prosecutors, huge portions of the money raised through these bonds were diverted into offshore accounts controlled by people connected to the scheme. Shell companies in Switzerland, accounts in Singapore, private banking networks. Billions moved through the international financial system disguised as legitimate transactions. The central figures inside Goldman Sachs included banker Tim Leissner and executive Roger Ng. U.S. prosecutors later accused both men of helping facilitate bribes and laundering operations tied to 1MDB. Leissner eventually pleaded guilty. Roger Ng was later convicted. Goldman Sachs itself would ultimately pay billions in settlements globally. The bank claimed it had been deceived by corrupt officials, but investigators argued something darker. That parts of the financial system were willing to ignore obvious red flags because the deals were simply too profitable. And this is what made 1MDB different from ordinary corruption. It wasn't just one politician stealing money. It was an entire ecosystem of bankers, intermediaries, lawyers, consultants, and institutions benefiting from the flow. Everyone earned something, as long as nobody asked too many questions. Billions had now moved through the financial system. Offshore accounts were filling up. Shell companies were multiplying. So where did all the money actually go? Then came the spending. And this is where the scandal became almost surreal. Because stolen money is usually hidden quietly. Not here. Joe Low spent money like someone trying to turn excess itself into a personal brand. Luxury penthouses in New York, mansions in Beverly Hills, properties across London, private jets, rare artwork, jewelry worth tens of millions. And then there was the yacht, the Equanimity. A 300-foot floating palace complete with a helipad, swimming pool, cinema, spa, and nightclub-level luxury. Estimated price? $250 million. It became one of the most recognizable symbols of the scandal. But perhaps the strangest chapter involved Hollywood. A production company called Red Granite Pictures, co-founded by Najib Razak's stepson, Riza Aziz, helped finance major films, including The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about greed, fraud, excess, and financial corruption, funded partly with money allegedly stolen from a sovereign wealth fund. Leonardo DiCaprio attended parties with Joe Low. Celebrities appeared at his events. Models, actors, musicians, socialites. Lavish celebrations in Las Vegas and Saint-Tropez became routine. At one point, reports claimed Joe Low paid massive sums simply to have celebrities attend birthday parties. It was wealth as theater, a performance designed to communicate one thing: power. But the extravagance also created a problem, because eventually, spending at that scale becomes impossible to hide, especially when the source of the money doesn't make sense. Eventually, there was a problem. You can hide stolen money, but can you hide a $250 million yacht? The answer was no. In 2015, the illusion began collapsing. A whistleblower connected to Petro-Saudi leaked internal financial documents. Those documents eventually reached investigative journalist Claire Rucastle Brown, founder of the Sarawak Report. What she uncovered sent shockwaves through Malaysia. Hundreds of millions of dollars linked to 1MDB had allegedly entered the personal bank accounts of Prime Minister Najib Razak. The government initially claimed the money was simply a donation from Saudi royalty. Many people did not believe that explanation. Soon, investigations exploded internationally. The United States Department of Justice launched one of the largest asset recovery operations in its history. Authorities in Switzerland, Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries began tracing money flows. Bank accounts were frozen. Luxury assets were seized. Yachts confiscated. Shell companies exposed. The political fallout inside Malaysia became enormous. In 2018, Najib Razak's ruling coalition lost power for the first time since the country gained independence. Soon afterward, police raids uncovered luxury goods, designer handbags, jewelry collections, and massive amounts of cash connected to the scandal. For years, the system had protected itself. Now, it was turning inward. Investigators were closing in. Politicians were being arrested. Bankers were being charged. But one question remained. Where was Zhou Luo? Najib Razak was arrested. In 2020, he was convicted on multiple charges involving corruption and abuse of power. He became the first former Malaysian prime minister sent to prison. Goldman Sachs agreed to pay billions in settlements tied to the scandal. Tim Leissner pleaded guilty. Roger Ng received a prison sentence. Governments around the world recovered yachts, artwork, luxury properties, and frozen assets connected to 1MDB. Malaysia eventually recovered billions. But one central figure remained missing. Zhou Luo disappeared from public view years earlier. Authorities across multiple countries charged him with money laundering and fraud. Interpol issued notices. Investigators searched internationally. Still, no arrest. Reports have repeatedly claimed he may be living in China under protection and using false identities. He denies wrongdoing, and despite one of the largest financial scandals in modern history, the man accused of orchestrating it has never stood trial. The 1MDB scandal was never just about one corrupt businessman or one prime minister. It revealed something much bigger. A world where banks processed suspicious transactions because profits were enormous, where elite institutions ignored warning signs, where wealth itself became camouflage. Because when someone appears rich enough, connected enough, and powerful enough, people often stop questioning where the money came from. $4.5 billion allegedly disappeared from a developing nation, and for years, the global financial system helped move it. Not silently, not secretly, openly. The system did not collapse because the fraud was too sophisticated. It survived because too many powerful people benefited from keeping it alive. And somewhere out there, Zhou Luo is still free.